In the educational market, for example, we've seen no decline. On the contrary, this is really interesting, we now have deals with a number of provinces across the country licensing nfb.ca, which is available free to individuals, but they understand that that's individuals, and they're licensing it for use in schools across those provinces. The revenue is not negligible. Then when we were ready to launch, we had to make another difficult choice. At any given time, the Film Board has something like over 100 projects that need some form of marketing. And we had a habit of nickel and diming our tiny marketing budget across all those 100 or so projects. And I said, well, we can't do this anymore. 80% of our impact will come from 20% of what we do. So we have to rethink marketing. We have to be smarter about it overall and ensure that we are being just to everything. You know, we've got to figure out the proper ways of doing things. Not everything is going to get the same kinds of treatment. Not everything needs the same kind of treatment. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we were maximizing marketing for the big things. So again, we went through all our budgets and kind of put aside a sizable chunk for us, not in terms of normal media spends, to market the online screening room. And in a departure for us, I decided we'd work with an agency. And we put out a call, had some 20+ responses from leading agencies across the country, and shortlisted 4. We told them what we wanted, but we also asked them to do a marketing case study. And this was interesting because what I gave them was an interactive project that we had running for about a year, the St. Michael's Filmmaker in Residence, which had been breaking new ground in terms of creation, winning accolades around the world, picking up awards, including a Banff Rocky, the Canada New Media Award, and a Webby, and many others. But we hadn't done a lot of good deal of marketing justice to it. And so we gave that to these 4 companies, and they came back with some really interesting insights and analysis on that. But it also allowed us to see how they were thinking about marketing in this digital universe. And the firm that won our hearts was Montreal-based Marketel, and they did a fabulous job of coming to grips with what we were and what we had to offer. And, you know, Marketel came up with a smart and relatively inexpensive plan, and we decided on a strategy that we were going to build core audience and we were going to do it online. We couldn't afford to go mainstream media. We couldn't afford to put out billboards or take ads in the dailies across the country. We couldn't certainly take out television ads. So we built it based on core audiences, on niche audience, and we said we're going to do that. We did it through keyword ads and placements, and it was a campaign over a year. And the man behind the strategy at Marketel is a guy called Jean-Sébastien Defoy. After a year, he says, he recently, about a month ago, he came and joined us as head of marketing. He's sitting right over there, so you can wave Jean-Sébastien. He says it's been the longest interview process he went through. But in any case, the plan worked, and I think for those who were at the panel on which Deborah was speaking, you see the numbers were incredible for us in terms of growth, in terms of the number of people coming and screening, the level at which people stay for the screening room. And now industry average in terms of online is something like 5–6%. On our site, the people are staying to completion, which is defined as watching at least 75% of a film, is running at around 46%. We also saw a great shift in behavior from previously from the site. People were accessing the site during the day. The screening room then had shifted to evening and weekends. Very interesting. And the demographics was really interesting on this as well. We recently had a couple of last week ComScore data which showed, you know, essentially like 1,000% increase from the youth demographic, which is defined by, I think, 18 to 24. Remarkable. And even more so was the response, was the comments we were getting from all of this, across all age groups and across the country, which was an outpouring of, wow, I love this. I mean, we got a letter from someone, a Canadian in Korea, saying, I'm destroying my family life because I'm sitting here watching NFB films all the time. And a couple of weeks ago, Michael Adams, unbeknownst to us, he runs a kind of online survey with youth called Youthology, and he threw out the question, what does NFB mean to you? And again, the response from an audience that we thought we had lost and coming back was like remarkable, because they could connect, they could see, they could kind of access. And what they were accessing, and this does speak to a point Adam made about cultural references, it was the one place, in a way, that you could get a sense of who we are across time, across geography, across linguistic barriers. And in a way, you could go from, you know, McLaren's Neighbors in '52, which won the Oscar then, to the Sandcastle Hodemans in '76, to Ryan in 2004. And whatever, whether doc, animation, the experience of all of this is utterly remarkable. Now, there were a lot of other things that went into the making of this success, including complete internal reorganization, implementing new workflows, bringing in new competencies, putting a major emphasis on training, and equally important on the programming side was pushing forward with explorations of interactivity, making things happen. But, you know, there's a whole other story there. You know, all along the way, we had to make choices. This wasn't self-evident. It wasn't like, gee, this is what you can do, and it's easy to do, and you just go and put things online. It doesn't happen that way. Lots of small choices every time, looking at how do you prioritize, how do you spend money. And we had to do a lot of hard choices, including the abolition of jobs. A lot of traditional jobs. We had to say, doesn't serve the purpose anymore, and it was hard, I can tell you that. But I would be remiss if I didn't say also how important it has been to get the right people on the bus, and that the management team I have is a remarkable group of talented people. And it wasn't that they came all with the skills necessary, but they were all able to rise to the occasion, and they were transformed by the challenge itself. They found themselves kind of shifting in terms of their thinking, their ability to do things. Very early on in the process, for example, the person who was, excuse me, who was supposed to be in charge of the process, I saw this was not going to work. It was going to be a disaster. And I looked at, and Deborah and I were talking, and Deborah had a completely different role, had nothing to do with this. She was head of government relations, strategic policy at the film board at the time. But what she had, and I said, you can do this. And she said, yeah, I want to do it. And what she had was strategic smart. She had a vision, and she knew, and I knew that she could kind of cut through the technobabble that the, you know, all our kind of internet guys would come to us and kind of, and she could say, no, let's see, this is what's important. And she did a remarkable job of steering that through to the launch and success. So that was really crucial in that. And the other thing, very early on in the process, despite all the doubts, I was able to get the adherence of the staff. They didn't fully see, they didn't fully agree, but they trusted me enough to put their damnedest effort into it. And without that, and without them, also none of this could have happened. So here we are a year later, and the world changed for us. It really has. I mean, and what changed and what's been fundamental has been that direct connection with audience. That's the lifeblood. If you're connected, you know, it makes you in some ways invincible. Now, our plans for the future are still more ambitious, even as we are bumping up against the limits of our ability to make internal economies and belt tightening, and the continued overall erosion of our financial base. And the real danger, as I see it, in fact, for us, is to settle into a comfort zone and assume, well, we've done our job because everybody loves what we've done. In fact, we've barely begun. And it's something that I have to keep reiterating, and I speak to all our staff, and I say, you know, we're in an age, to use a Trotskyist phrase, of permanent revolution. Things are not going to settle down. There's never going to be a point where we're going to stop, where we can say, okay, we've done the job, we're settled, good, we can coast. Ain't going to happen.